know your patterns, but the same story just keeps playing out on repeat when you're dating someone new or when you're in a new relationship, like a car crash in slow motion. And you're starting to think, maybe it's me. Girl, I've been there. You also probably already know the one pattern that has been repeated in pretty much all of your past relationship. So the question begs, if I understand my patterns, how do I actually choose and act differently when I'm dating in real life so that I can date a man who is actually right for me and a relationship that actually just works out, right? Because this is where a lot of us get stuck. You see, you've done the awareness, you understand red flags, you know your nervous system, you can see unhealthy dynamics more clearly than ever now. And yet, when you're actually in front of someone you like, it still feels like the same thing is happening. And you can see it all rolling out in slow motion, and you know exactly what's going to happen next. It feels hard to make different choices sometimes, right? And it feels hard to be different. And again, believe me, I've been there, so no judgment, right? And it's not because you don't know better, you absolutely do, but because the moment requires application, not insight. That is, it requires physically doing something differently, and that thing, whether it's the way you think, feel, behave, reply, abstain from replying or behaving, that change in action feels wrong inside of your body, right? To do something differently effectively could feel unsafe, it could feel wrong on a body level, and even though it feels right logically, and we talked about that a lot in the past few videos, right? So if you missed that, I've dropped those links of those videos in the description below because we need to move on and get to the question at hand, which is that women who break patterns, how do they choose differently in dating? And by choosing, we mean different men, different actions, different dynamics, and it lands them in a relationship that actually feels good to them. In other words, what is it that Sandra, who sits opposite you in the office, is doing that you're not doing to not only have the career of her dreams, but also have a man that absolutely adores her? And we all know a Sandra. Okay, here's the bomb drop that changes everything. Choosing differently in dating isn't about having higher standards. And that might feel like a crazy revelation to you, right? It's not about having higher standards. It's about changing what you pay attention to while dating. Most women are still choosing based on chemistry, intensity. So again, we talked about the masculine energy man who pursues you. We accidentally confuse that for intensity. We're not looking to be chased. You're looking for an adult, mature, reciprocal relationship, right? And if you're not sure what I'm talking about there, watch the second video in this playlist to find out those green flags you should be looking for on those first few dates. Most women are dating with how strong the pull feels, whether attraction lights up quickly. Women who break patterns choose based on something entirely different. And guess what? At first, that's going to feel weird. It's going to feel forced even, and maybe just totally wrong, because what you really want is to be able to sit across from someone and feel oriented, not swept away, not shut down, not overanalyzing every detail later when you get back into your flat after a date and think, what the hell just happened there? You want to leave dates feeling grounded, clear, self-respecting, emotionally intact, and confident, right? In the direction that you're moving, whether that's forward or away, right? Whether you decide to see him again or whether you don't. You just want to feel confident, like you know what you're doing, not second guessing yourself. But willpower doesn't create that clarity. Knowing your standards doesn't automatically mean you can apply them. And understanding your trauma doesn't suddenly make dating easy. What's missing isn't more effort or banging your head against a brick wall trying to watch every video on YouTube and every self-development book, right? And I'm saying that with so much love because I know how that feels, and I also know some of you can be really hard on yourselves, right? What's missing is a different way of evaluating connection in real time. So in this video, I want to walk you through how women who are consciously breaking patterns actually make choices while dating, not in theory, but in practice. So what they focus on, what they ignore, and why their decisions feel calmer over time. Okay, so I'm going to share with you a few pattern breaking behaviors that help women to choose differently and date men where a relationship that feels good is the only possible result. Okay, pattern break number 1. They center themselves first, not the man. Most women ask questions like, do I like him? Is he attractive? Is there chemistry? Women who break patterns ask something else first. Who am I becoming around this person? Am I being the person I actually identify as and want to be? Do I feel calm or activated, relaxed or on guard, grounded or hyper-focused? This isn't about judging emotions, it's about reading them. The body has the answers long before the mind even knows what is going on. So they listen to their bodies and all the important information that it's signaling to them in those first dates and in the dating process. And this is the first important change to actually implement in your dating and relationship actions so that you get different outcomes. Okay, behavior number 2. They prioritize consistency over intensity, right? Pattern breaking women are alert to intensity, but they don't confuse it with depth and meaning. And this is such a mistake I get with coaches or therapists who come and actually coach with me on this, because we love an in-depth conversation. We love a heart-to-heart, and we're going to go from 0 to 100 miles per hour on date 1 within the first 10 minutes. And maybe you're not even a coach or therapist and you love deep conversation, right? You love to see how deep someone can go. But it can be really easy to confuse that kind of rushed intimacy with depth, right? Because the ones of us who really value depth in a man, we just keep getting the over-romantic love bombing types, right? And it's because we're literally like a beacon signaling to them, like, we love intensity. It feels like depth and complexity, and it feels like a meaningful soul connection, right? We've got that post-it on our forehead, right? So instead of attracting those types, watch for steady communication. Now, what is that? Because it sounds boring. Steady communication is just, you message, he kind of messages back. Maybe it's not immediate. He kind of has a pattern with it. You know, we're all different with messaging. And he's just kind of consistent with that, or he messages you, plans are being made. You know, it's just consistent. It's not necessarily intense. And it might not be as much as you want it to be at first, right? But give it time, let it kind of go out in its own pattern, and you may find that that is actually steady communication and it feels really, really good. Emotional continuity, right? He's just kind of the same emotionally. He's able to meet you in conversations. He's emotionally available. And we'll go into so much more depth in future videos around what that actually looks like in dating. Because we all say this thing like emotional availability. But what is that even? You know, there are so many ways to look for that in the first date. But you're looking ultimately for emotional continuity, predictable follow through, rather than, you know, dramatic connection, right? You're not looking for, he messaged me. I'm so glad he messaged me because it's been days and days and I thought he had lost interest. Like, none of that. Nobody has time for that use of emotional energy anymore. You're looking for something that just feels really steady, really calm, extremely non-dramatic. There's no triangulation. It's just as is expected, right? Rapid bonding, I talked about that. You don't need to be soulmates on the first date. You can wait for a little bit longer to do that. It's something I used to do, so that's why it has a fond place in my heart. Highs followed by distance, right? They understand, these women who are choosing differently, they understand that intensity often comes from unmet needs, not emotional availability. Okay, different behavior number 3 that you're looking for. They don't overinvest early. So women do not overinvest early in any man that they're dating. And this is a huge one, right? They don't emotionally future project after a good date. Now, I think you know what I'm talking about. You've been on an amazing date. Have you already imagined your wedding day and what your kids are going to look like and what your house is going to look like and how amazing it is when your families meet and you have the wedding of your dreams? And but are you going to get a golden retriever? And we all do it. And you know, the thing with that is, I don't know if you can necessarily stop doing that, because that is a way of you just getting excited and you're used to doing that. You've got that pattern, but have the awareness that in those moments, you need to set yourself a timer and let it go, right? So too much future projecting and fantasizing around what the relationship could be to you in the future after date 1, date 2, date 3, or even after 3 months of dating. If it keeps happening because you can't help yourself, just know that that is not real. Anything you're coming up with in your mind is not based on facts, it's based on fiction. And it doesn't mean it's not going to happen for you. It just means that setting your hopes up like that and getting attached might create more stumbling blocks along the way. So it's okay, basically, if you're a dreamer. There's nothing wrong with that as long as you're aware of it and you keep it in check, you keep it grounded, right? And that awareness keeps your behavior grounded in the reality of what actually is happening, not what you would like to happen in the future. So women who pattern break and choose differently don't reorganize their lives around potential, okay? They don't attach before information is actually available. They let time reveal the true character of the man. Now, attachment is a huge thing and we talk about it a lot, right? So I want to clarify something. This isn't complete detachment. And if you are still in the process of healing anxious attachment, or you're fearful avoidant, or you already know you're a little bit avoidant, right? It can be quite difficult to not date and relate out of those patterns. And sometimes when we're trying to learn how to be really, really unattached, we're trying to be like a stable, healthy attachment, we swing to the other end and we're like, I don't care about anything, right? Because we don't really know how to do the balance yet, so we're experimenting with it. So this isn't complete detachment. You're not like, I couldn't care if he lives or die. Like, it's not that. That's a step too far, right? And I know we've all experimented with this because anxious attachment can be so hard and so uncomfortable to break, right? But it's not detachment, it's pacing. And this is the way to form a healthy attachment, right? That's a really easy thing to practice in early dating to make sure that you're developing a healthy attachment, or as healthy as you can with this new person you're dating. Okay, behavior 4. These women allow ambiguity without abandoning themselves, right? So they can tolerate not knowing the outcome. They can sit in a certain level of uncertainty around, is this the man for me? Is this relationship right for me? Without spiraling, right? So how many of us have gone down some type of relationship spiral in our brain where we're so panicked because we've seen something we don't like, or we've seen something we really, really like, but we don't know how invested he is in us, right? And we go down this whole thought process and spiraling because we just don't know. Is he taking the connection seriously? Do I want to be in the connection? These women who are pattern breaking understand that actually in the dating process, all of that is normal. All of that uncertainty and gray space, not knowing what this person might be to you or might not be to you, is actually totally normal. And it's a healthy part of the dating process. And they can sit in it. And sometimes it gets uncomfortable, but ultimately they won't sabotage and drive actions because they just can't handle this feeling, right? They can handle the uncertainty of the early stages of dating with ease and grace. Is he right for me? Is there relationship potential? Can I trust what he's saying? She knows the only way to find out is basically to allow the connection to roll on so she can collect the data that she needs. So she doesn't chase reassurance by asking him questions that she doesn't even really know the answers to yet, right? She doesn't overtext to create some type of reassurance because his absence feels like a slow death, right? Classic anxious attachment. She doesn't analyze every interaction and hyper-analyze it because sometimes it's just not that deep, right? She stays connected to herself. She doesn't go with his frame or his flow. She feels very safe in her body. She's able to ground herself. She's able to create a sense of safety in herself. She doesn't allow him to drag her around through his actions or through his emotions. And he's not even trying to do that, right? It's a reaction we can sometimes have in our bodies to someone else when we really, really want something to work out or we need to know the answers. So ambiguity isn't interpreted as a threat. She knows it's simply part of the early dating process until clarity appears, and she knows that it's normal. Okay, pattern break number 5. They watch behavior more than words, okay? Pattern breaking women don't get hooked on potential. They look at follow through. Does he do what he says he's going to do? Or does he actually have intention of what he says he's going to do? But then you can see he slips up through something that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's a personality trait. So maybe he's a bit forgetful, or maybe he's not good at multitasking, or maybe his work is so busy that he's constantly leaving things and doing this and doing that. So you know already that that's the kind of guy he is. It doesn't make him a bad person, but she can assess whether that's going to be tolerable for her or not, right? But she ultimately looks at behavior, whatever that is. Emotional availability, again, how consistent is he, and does that meet your needs or her needs, right? And how repair happens when there's conflict in relationship, which is totally normal. When you have arguments, what's the dynamic in repairing the relationship? What's going on there? What role are you taking? What role is he taking? What's happening between you, right? What happens when things aren't convenient? How does he behave? How do you behave? Because charm gets old pretty quick. Consistency becomes far more attractive over time. Okay, pattern break number 6. They end the relationship early when something doesn't align. And now this is a key piece, because I know we've all done that. We've all blocked someone. We've all turned our phone off. We've all unfollowed someone from Instagram, okay? So let me be very precise in what is happening here, right? Not dramatically, not reactively, not with long explanations. You don't have to like over explain. Some situations don't even require a conversation, right? If the connection hasn't been that established. So they notice misalignment and they respond to it appropriately rather than overriding it. And this is one of the biggest shifts, because they don't need proof that something is wrong. Their experience in dating and relationship is enough, right? They are channeling their wise woman energy. They've had experience. They've been on dates. They know what they're looking for. They're not experiencing high levels of attachment to the relationship. They're just prioritizing what their needs are in this lifetime, right? Because here's what's going on a much, much deeper level. They know they are worthy to stay single and wait for the right man, or live a delicious life on their own terms, right? And until then, and I'd say this is the hardest part, right? They're happy to just wait for the right person to come along and use the dating experience for practice and for fine-tuning exactly what it is that they're looking for. They don't have a future goal attached to the man. And if you are in your 30s and you want to have children, this is the hardest one, because of course you want to have children in a loving family. That's like the plan A. And it's very hard to actually accept that that is what you desire, and you do need a male partner to do that. But at the same time, you're not hinging your whole future on it, because that level of attachment almost pretty much guarantees that you are just going to be in the energy of trying to make it work with the man that is there in your life at the moment versus the right man. And I have been there. So I'm speaking from personal experience. The women I have coached will also say there's no shame in doing this. It is just a natural thing that happens. You simply can't help but be attached. But yet that's the one thing that's shooting you in the foot, is looking at the man as if finding the man means you finally get to have your own future. And that's a huge one. Okay, pattern break number 7 is also extremely huge. It's dating becomes information gathering, not validation seeking, right? They're not dating to be chosen. They're not dating so they can finally be a woman who gets a ring. They can buy themselves a ring, quite frankly, and they've done it several times before, right? They're dating to choose well. Feel the shift? That subtle internal shift changes everything. Less anxiety, clearer decisions, healthier attraction, less self-abandonment. Dating stops being emotionally draining and starts being orienting. Right, so Choosing differently doesn't happen through pressure or perfection. It happens when attention moves inwards, the pace slows down, and safety becomes more attractive than intensity, right? So that's how patterns actually break, one grounded choice at a time. And once you can see how to choose differently, the real work is becoming that version of you in real life who can physically behave differently and sustain those choices without falling back into old patterns. So, if you are curious how these pattern breaking women become the women that they want to be and that they know that they deep down actually are, then click the next video to find out. And I'm sending you so much love.